There's an incredible number of you attended. I can see that there's still people coming into the lobby now, so we'll give it a few minutes, just let everybody else come in, and then we'll crack on. The session is also recorded as well, so I believe that Matt will be uploading this to like your membership portal or somewhere that you'll be able to refer back to it or share it internally if there's anyone that can't make the call.
That's right. We'll share the link on afterwards, so we can you can access it at any time, because there are colleagues who couldn't make this particular time but have said they'd like to catch up on what's been said and what have you. And there will be further sessions in future, but as I say, for the purposes of today, it will be recorded, so it can be referred back to at any point. So that's a good advantage of the recording as well. So
fabulous. I think everyone that was waiting in the lobby is now in, so I will crack on if that's okay, and say if anyone else is a latecomer, I'm sure they'll be able to catch up.
Absolutely. I'll just turn off my camera and I'll keep an eye on the chat function and also admit anybody else that comes along. So if you want to crack on, over to you, Ella.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Matt. So although I can't see you, it's very funny sort of doing a little bit of an introduction to myself, but I manage the relationship that NEUPC and the wider business have with Creditsafe, and in turn look after all of you guys. Now, it was, gosh, probably a few months back that Matt and the team asked me to run a workshop at the NEUPC annual conference, where we focus predominantly on compliance from a financial risk standpoint. Then we looked at PEP and sanctions, especially with everything that's happening in the world right now. And then that sort of led on to UBOs, and then also reputational risk. And it's something that I think has been included within the access that all of you have to Creditsafe, but it's probably one of the most neglected areas of the platform until now. And so once we started talking about it, I seem to have been inundated with questions and referrals to other people within your organisations that may have some form of interest in these types of checks, you know, past just looking at sort of standard financial risk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you and sort of take you through a little bit of a journey, starting with financial risk, then moving into individuals, PSCs and UBOs. We're going to be looking at how to screen the businesses and individuals, and then how to monitor them moving forward, so that 6 months after you award a contract to a particular company or individual, if something were to happen, so they were in the press for being up to no good, they were sanctioned either in the UK or overseas, how you'd then be alerted to that. So I really hope that you find it interesting, and if not, then grab a cuppa. It's going to be a long hour for you guys. Right. I have shared my screen. Matt, would you mind just confirming that you can see the platform? I think that was probably yes, you can see it. Right, so this is the platform I'm sure all of you have access to, and you're very familiar with it at this point, from using it for credit checking purposes. I'm not sure whether all of you are using the monitoring function when it comes to the financial aspect of the businesses, so you get those alerts as and when companies submit new financial information and their scores fluctuate, directors come and go, ultimate holding companies change and so on. But this is our go-to platform. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to pull up a company, and I'm going to use a business with lots of companies within the group as an example. You probably know this already, but just in case you're not as familiar with the platform, even if you keep this set to United Kingdom when you are doing a search, you do get your UK limited, non-limited, and then your international results that pop up as well. So if you are looking as to why you can't find a business that should be there, then maybe head down to those rest of the world results and you may well find it there. So what I am going to do is I am going to pop into one of these companies. So I'm going to choose this one, for example. And what it's going to do is it's going to generate the full credit report. Now, because we are one of only 4 commercial credit bureaus in the UK, all of this data is live, it comes direct from source, and we do have live API feeds for all of this information. Everybody else, bar the 4 commercial credit bureaus, are resellers, so they will work with one of us or a number of us and purchase their data that way. So if you do hear us refer to commercial credit bureaus or data owners, that's what I mean. I mean us. So you'll obviously have your risk scores. You may or may not have noticed that we also introduced the odds of failure stats. So if you hover over the risk score, this is really, really useful. So at the moment, we've successfully predicted over 90% of insolvencies 12 months before they've happened. So when you are looking at businesses and you are screening potential suppliers, it's definitely worth hovering over the risk score and looking at that odds of failure number just to see whether it's going to almost be a headache for you guys in the not too distant future, and you're going to have to replace a supplier anyway. You've also got the ranking feature, which will directly compare this business to other companies within the same sector of a similar size. So we know that on average, certain sectors score much lower than others, and it's just because the sector as a whole is a lot more unstable. So we want to give you that little bit extra insight as to how they're performing compared to other businesses of a similar size in the same sector. You've then got obviously your international bandings, credit limit, so total amount of exposure for a single invoice over 30 days. And this contract limit, I'd imagine, is what most of you are looking at when you are assessing potential suppliers. So this is the amount of exposure, the total value of a contract that you should be awarding a business over a 12-month period. And this is how much strain a company can take on them for a single contract over a year. You've then got your DBT information, and that is all triggered by trade payment information that comes directly into us through our 3D ledger tool. So these are companies, clients of Creditsafe, that choose to share their entire sales ledgers with us, and that's where we generate that DBT number, standing for days beyond terms. Now, I won't be going into too much depth on some of the financial information because this session is more geared towards compliance, but I thought I'd just touch on those headline stats. And if anybody does want more of an in-depth session around financial risk, then please do let me know. I'm more than happy to arrange that at another time. You'll then obviously have your a breakdown of basic company data, all of your trading addresses listed as well. You'll then have your ultimate holding company on this summary page. Also, you'll get what we call warning bands on this summary page. So if we have picked up on anything that we see to be a big red flag on a company report, we will put a big red banner on the summary page. You may well have seen them before, drawing that particular area to your attention. For example, if you've got a company and they have an adverse auditor comment left on their financials, so it's a negative auditor comment left, we'll bring that to your attention. If there's an associated director failure warning, so one of the directors has been linked to a company that's gone insolvent within the past year, we'll bring that to your attention, along with things like profit warnings as well. So anything that we see as a big red flag, you will have a big banner on the summary page so you can't miss it. You then have just a snapshot of the past 3 years worth of financials. The rest is all on the financial tab, which I'm sure you've seen before. The trade payment information, this is the raw data that fuels that DBT number that you saw at the top of the screen a moment ago. And you can then go ahead and see what outstanding debt they have in each different debtor pool. This is a great early indication of companies in distress. If you do have a business that is starting to struggle, before you start seeing CCJs coming through, late payments, you start seeing the cash flow become tighter and tighter, and therefore them being unable to pay their own suppliers on time. So this is a really, really good indication as to how they're performing as a business and how efficient they are at running their company. You've then got this commentary section. Now, this is probably going to be the most crucial area of this entire report when it comes to arming you with the information you need to make an informed decision on financial risk. So what we do within this commentary section is we analyse the entire report based on the size of the company. So we have 7 separate algorithms depending on the size of the business and how they file with Companies House if they're in the UK. We will then assess any areas that are having a really positive or a really negative impact on the overall score and limit. So for example, this company, you can see, has a big red flag on there, and it's informing us that the latest pre-tax profit figure is showing a loss for the last trading period. Now, things that also may show up on here are if a company has a high amount of short-term financial obligations, things like credit cards, overdrafts, short-term loans, versus the amount of cash they have readily available within the business. It's just a really great early indicator without you having to go trawling through some of the financials. And that's probably something that comes a little bit later. But as a pre-screening tool, that commentary section is really, really great. So I'd highly recommend utilising it if it's something that you don't use already. And then you've just got the inquiry summary. So what you've got here is a bit of information showing you how many other clients of Creditsafe are credit checking this business month on month. Okay, and that is the summary page. Now, I won't sort of go into score and limit or any of the trading information or SIC data at this point. Like I said, this is more focused around compliance. So I'm hopefully setting the scene to head into the compliance area. So I'm actually going to skip into director information now. Now, this is where we will list all current directors and also any previous directors. We'll also list all known PSCs, whether they're corporate or individual human beings, as well as previous PSCs as well. You can see here that when we have our directors listed, we also will give you a bit more of information around the number of other appointments that they hold. So how many other businesses are these individuals connected to? So we can see here there's a gentleman also connected to 39 other businesses, 66 other businesses, 11 other businesses. And then if you go ahead and click on the individual's name, it'll load up what we call a director report. So this is basically telling you how many other businesses they currently hold a position as a director at, how many previous appointments they've had, and how many dissolved appointments they've had as well. And then we'll go ahead and list every single business and also the financial position that they are in. So we can see that we've got a number of newly incorporated companies here. We can see the position that the individual holds at those businesses, if they've got any outstanding CCJs that are linked to that business, if they've got a positive or negative net worth associated with them, as well as turnover data. We'll include all of that so that you hopefully don't have to go and run a full report on every single company. It gives you that little bit of insight as to whether it's something that you should be concerned about. If you did, however, want to go in and view the full financial report for that business, you can just go ahead and click on the company name. It's all hyperlinked, so it'll just take you to view the full report off the back of that. Now, if you also are interested in going that little bit further and trying to find possible matches. Now, we understand that with Companies House, unfortunately, it's very, very easy for individuals to file a number of different businesses and actually record their names slightly differently to avoid being linked to companies that may not have been viewed as particularly successful in the past. For example, I'm an Ella Nelson. I may then choose to file my next company and put May Ella Nelson. I may have my birthday listed for one company as the 9th of May, and then another company as the 5th of September. We see this an awful lot. So this possible matches tab is basically going to screen variations of names and addresses. And what you can do then is choose whether you want to find potential matches based on date of birth, the address that they're linked to, their first and last names. So it's a really, really useful tool in seeing, are they trying to hide anything? Are they trying to hide another business that they're potentially connected to? Now, it might not be something that you want to do every single time. However, when you're reaching sort of the end of a tender process, it might be time to go that one step further and see, okay, are they listed, linked to any businesses that we don't really want connected to us, as it might tarnish our reputation, or it's a particular business that doesn't have hold the same sort of moral values as you do as an organisation. You've then got international linkages, and again, what this is going to do is it's going to try and link the individual to any companies overseas. So we have got some, and in fact, this is the same individual that's been linked to some businesses in the US. So again, if there's certain countries that you as standard will not deal with, it may be because you're taking funding from somewhere and you know they don't necessarily agree with you trading with a particular country that they might have sanctioned, then it's definitely worth just going that one step further and seeing whether the individual is linked to any businesses overseas that may be causing a slight conflict of interest there. Okay, I'm going to head back into the main director report here. So what you can then do right at the bottom is you can view company secretary and then all of your shareholders. So what it'll give you is the percentage share count as well as the actual share count. As you can see, all of these are corporate entities, which actually makes life a lot easier than if they're individuals. With individuals as shareholders, I'm sure you all know, you only actually have to file the names of the individuals. So it, you know, you would not believe, I'm sure you probably would believe the amount of John Smiths that are directors of companies in the UK, but it's really difficult to track them down. So actually, when we're looking at UBOs, corporate shareholders actually make our lives a little bit easier. Now, beyond this data, PSCs are something that have been sort of a particularly hot topic for us. Obviously, a few months ago with the war that broke out in Ukraine, we had over 400 new sanctions imposed within 2 days that we had to upload onto the platform. And there was a particular interest in looking at, OK, we understand that this business is based in the UK and they're not sanctioned. However, whose pockets are we lining when we are choosing this particular business as a supplier of ours? Or who is it that has ultimate control over this company? Is it somebody that we're comfortable in working with? And how well do we know these businesses that we're handing over sometimes quite vast amounts of money to? So what you'll have here is all persons and corporate entities that have significant control over a company. So we can see that this particular business has 2 corporate entities. And what it does is it also tells you the type of control that an individual or a corporate entity hold over a business. So whether that is a majority percentage of shares, voting rights. As you can see here, one of the entities has the right to appoint and remove directors and has predominant influence over the business and business decisions that are made internally. So it's really, really handy, and especially when you have individuals that are listed as PSCs that aren't directors and they're not listed as shareholders either. That's when this sort of data becomes particularly important and should hopefully fuel some of the compliance check-in that you'll then go on to do. So we can see that there's no other previous PSCs listed. We've just got the 2 current ones here. If you did want to go in and view a company report on the main shareholders or PSCs, you can then go ahead and view that company credit report if you so wish. I'll leave the financials for now because I'm sure all of you are pretty well versed when it comes to the financial data that we hold, but like it is all live direct from Companies House when we're looking at UK data or equivalent overseas. We now have 162 countries with instant international reporting available. So I'd imagine, you know, 9 times out of 10 you'll be able to find the international reports that you're looking for straight away. If you do need to go further back though than 5 years worth of financials, which is what we will as standard give you access to, then this image documents tab pulls all of the raw documentation direct from Companies House, and I think a lot of people don't actually realise that that's there. So no more flicking between Creditsafe and Companies House. All of the data is readily available and you can download the raw files from here. Okay, I'm now just going to quickly hop into some of the group structure data. before then jumping into the compliance and looking at PEPs, sanctions, adverse media, law enforcement alerts, and so on. So in this group structure tab, what we will do is we will tell you the number of businesses that are connected to this company and across how many countries, and then we'll also produce linkages. Now I'll go into that a little bit in a little bit more detail in a second. So firstly, you'll have a full group structure, and what we'll also do where available is we'll give you their credit score, credit limit and turnover. So without actually having to go in and view the full credit report, you can quite easily see, okay, how many non-trading entities sit within this group, how many trading entities sit within this group, which countries are they across, and what's the financial status of these businesses. You know, if a company that you're looking at seems to be pretty stable, however, they sit within a group of companies that seem to be sort of going wrong left, right and centre, you know, they have a sort of negative net profit number, their turnover is next to nothing, they've got a really low score and are classified as high risk, then it's an assessment for you guys to make as to whether you think that that might be a knock-on effect, especially if it is coming from a holding company, an ultimate holding company, or a business within the group that is far bigger than the one that you are contracting with. So hopefully, I'm sure you're all probably quite familiar with this data. And if you do want to download full reports, then you can choose to have all of the group structure data included within that as well. Now, linkages. Linkages are something that our group CEO, Cato, is very, very passionate about. And the end goal within the next few years is to really make a lot of progress when identifying linked companies and common ownership UBOs. So what we do at the moment is we will look at common ownership, directors and so on, to try and find businesses that don't necessarily sit within this group, however do have strong links to the company. So whether that is they have the same board of directors, they have the same shareholders and so on. It just gives you a little bit more of an insight into companies that they may not want you to see as part of the group structure. However, they are still part of the wider business family. And all of those businesses are listed in this linkages tab here. So again, it's something that is, I think, overlooked quite often, but especially when awarding large contracts and in the sector that you guys sit within, it's definitely worth having a little look in there when you are making an assessment as to whether to engage with a business or not. And then you've just got your negative information tab. And now we have, I'm not sure if you've noticed, we have actually included 2 extra negative data sets in this negative information tab. The main one being deliberate tax defaults. So if there is any skeletons in the closet behind these companies, we will bring it to your attention. So whether that is negative auditor comments, CCJs, trade creditors, safe alerts, associated director failures, deliberate tax defaults, we will put it all into one folder for you, and it is a skeletons in the closet. And hopefully for the majority of businesses that you're vetting, that will be completely blank. That is the goal. But that's as far as I'm going to go on the credit reporting side, because I think that gives you a bit of an insight as to the individuals and other businesses that you may want to dig a little bit deeper into ahead of running them through compliance checks. Now, when you view these reports, you do have a little button in this More Actions tab which says Screen. What that does is it will pull the data from the credit report and put the company itself through an international PEP, sanction, law enforcement, adverse media check, and it will automatically generate a report. You also have the option to do it on individual directors through this View Compliance Report button on the Director tab of the credit report. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how that looks and the data that comes back when you run the searches themselves. So on the left-hand side of the screen, under this compliance banner, you'll have compliance search. Before I actually go into that, Matt, are there any questions that have come through on the actual credit reports themselves?
There are one or two, yes. So I shall look at. Sorry, I'll just scroll back up to the first one. So where it shows the contract limit,
Yeah.
does it mean if the contract limit is missing?
So it can mean a few things. It's often missing for newly incorporated businesses, so they won't have a contract limit. They'll have a credit limit as standard of £500. If a company is deemed as very high risk and therefore their credit limit is very, very low, then it may be that we don't offer a contract limit at all, because we don't advise that you have that sort of exposure with a particular business. So if they're actively trading and they are a healthy business in terms of financial risk, then they should have a contract limit. If not, then it's because we don't advise any long-term exposure with that particular business.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question that came in was, does Creditsafe have connectors to link with Salesforce?
We do. We're a partner of Salesforce, actually. So a lot of my clients will connect Creditsafe data directly into Salesforce, Dynamics, SAP, whatever it might be. So yes, it's a plugin. It requires no development. It is ready to go within no more than 5 days.
Lovely. And then just one more for now, was linkages. Is the meaning of that different to the term of linked as used in the EU SME definition?
So linkages is something that we've come up with internally.
Okay.
So it is a sort of a Creditsafe founded data set. And basically with that, what we're looking at is any businesses, say with like common ownership, the same addresses, the same shareholders, same board of directors, and so on. So it is a Creditsafe founded term. Basically, we're just looking at any common factors between businesses that don't necessarily sit within the same group.
Perfect. That's wonderful. And that's all I have for you for now.
Fabulous. Okay, let me share my screen again. Matt, can you just confirm you can see that?
Can indeed, yes.
Fabulous. Okie dokie. So when you hit compliance search on the platform here, so again, compliance and compliance search, you will get another window that pops up. Now, what this will allow you to do is search for both individuals and businesses against international PEPs, both current and previous. Sanctions, again, both current and previous, and that includes sanctions overseas. So it's not just picking up businesses that are sanctioned by the UK government. We're looking at financial regulator alerts, law enforcement alerts, disqualified directors, insolvencies when we're looking at the UK businesses and individuals, as well as adverse media. Now, again, the sector that you operate within, reputational risk can be just as damaging as working with a business that goes bust, if not more so. So what I will do is I'm actually going to search for a company. Now, anyone that came to the workshop that I delivered a few months back at the NEUPC annual conference will be familiar with this company, because I refer to this particular business during that session. So I've just brought up the credit report so that we can see sort of the difference between the two. So this is a relatively small business. They're based in Glasgow. They're deemed to be very low risk. They're pretty good. You know, they are pretty small. They're pretty good payers. There's nothing adverse on their credit report whatsoever. So most of the time you would view this report and you'd think they're absolutely fine. That's when compliance comes in. So I am going to run the same business through a compliance search. Now, compliance as a product only includes negative data sets. So in an ideal world, if you have a company or an individual that is squeaky clean, it will come up with no results found. That is what we're looking for, because we don't want any positive hits on any of these databases. So no positive matches is actually a good thing when it comes to compliance checking. Now, what I'm going to do for this particular one is include all data sets and hit search. That's going to do a fuzzy search in the background. So it's going to use variations of the names, the company names that I inputted, as well as some of the letters and so on. But what we can do is change the filter level. So at the moment, I'm doing a really wide, broad, fuzzy search, and I'm not filtering it at all. And there's been 39 results. When I change this filter level, and we recommend you change it to about 85% plus match rate, we can see that it's only actually returned one positive match. The reason that that has happened is because in order to get an 85% plus match rate on this particular search, the company would need to include the words Nero and drinks. Because that's the data that I inputted in the original search criteria. So we can see here we've got one positive match. The company name is Nero Drinks Company Limited. We've got an address here. We've got a sanction, and it's a current sanction, and the match rate is 100%. So if I click onto this, it then gives us a little bit more information. So we've got some aliases, so trading names of that particular business. We can see that the sanction has been imposed by OFAC, so it's sanctioned in the US. And then we can see a few more notes about the business. Now, if I'm going to click into this window to say, OK, I can see there's a sanction. I want a bit more information about this sanction that's been imposed. If you click, it will then give you the raw documentation that supports the sanction that has been put in place. And actually, this particular business was sanctioned in the US due to links to the Kinahan cartel, which is an organised crime group that operates in Ireland and Dubai predominantly. They have really strong links to a lot of PR companies that work with boxers and sort of cage fighters. Probably most notable is Tyson Fury. So we can see all of the supporting documentation for the sanction that has been put in place. And then we've also got our linked persons. So this is the chap that was one of the key reasons for the sanction being imposed. So what we'll do is we'll give you his date of birth, we'll give you the nationality, we'll also give you passport numbers as well. So if you were running any further AML checks on the individuals behind these companies, then you'd get some positive matches pulling through as well. Are there any questions on this so far?
Not on this specific section, no. There is a question that's coming in terms of from insolvencies. It was a case of, did we say that it was 90% of insolvencies were discovered within 12 months, or as in the last 12 months, 90% of the ones that were insolvent have been? Yeah, it was just a clarification, really.
Yeah, no, of course. So when it comes to, I take it was the odds of failure number.
That's right.
So yeah, so when it comes to that, it's so for the past rolling 12 months, we've successfully predicted over 90% of the companies that have gone insolvent by saying that they're high risk and giving them really, really high odds of chances of failing within the next year.
Lovely, thank you. That was all for now.
No problem at all. So, like I said, you've got all of the supporting documentation and then linked persons as well. Now, what we would recommend doing at this point is then going ahead and monitoring the business or individual that you have searched for. So I suppose this is probably the final thing that will be done when onboarding a new supplier. So you'll go through all of the financial vetting. You'll then go through your compliance searches. So checking both the business and the individuals with significant influence over the company, or top shareholders, maybe individuals that have more than a 20% stake in the business. You'll run all of them through compliance and hopefully they'll come back squeaky clean. That's what we're hoping for. At that point, when you are looking to award the contract, you'll then add the individuals and businesses into a monitoring portfolio within compliance. So you'll be monitoring them from a financial point of view through the website, which I'm sure all of you do now, which is this monitor button here. And then you can go in and add them to suppliers, for example, and that'll monitor their credit report. And then we're going to do the same when it comes to the business. So I'm going to click add to monitor. You'll have your own portfolio set up. You may then have your own supplier reference numbers. It'll drag the company name through, and if you do also include the address and so on, when you run the initial search, then that will pull through as well. And then you hit save. Now, what that is going to do is it is going to rescreen that company and the individuals behind the business every 24 hours until you remove them from monitoring within compliance. So 6 months after the point of engagement with that particular company, if they are in the press because they've been connected to child trafficking, human trafficking, child slavery overseas, if any of the individuals behind the business have been picked up on terrorism watch lists, if they've been found in Vegas airport with banned substances and it's been picked up in the media, all of that sort of information will be fed through and you'll be alerted to it. Now, you can choose to either have your alerts coming through via email or sat within the compliance product itself. So once you've got all of the businesses sat within compliance, you then have a work list. So, for example, I've been working with this company, 6 months on, I get an alert via email saying that there's something I need to review because they've been picked up in the media for something. I can then log on to Creditsafe, head into compliance, and then I open up my work list. Now, this is the portfolio that I'm working on. You'll each have your own portfolios. And you can say, right, OK, we have PEP alerts, sanction alerts, adverse media alerts, law enforcement and financial regulator alerts that we need to work through. So we can see here that financial regulator, for example, there's one record. So there's one company that I'm monitoring that has received 2 alerts since I last came into here. So there's 2 alerts that I need to review for one company. If I click on that, what it's then going to do is it's going to bring up the individual's name that I'm monitoring. This happens to be an individual rather than a business. And it's going to say that it's 100% match rate. And I haven't actually reviewed them yet. So I'm going to head into this individual and it's going to pull up the type of alerts that we have got. So we've got a financial regulator alert and then a law enforcement financial regulator alert. So again, if I click into here, what it's then going to do is give me a little bit more information. So we can see here that this is a reputational risk associated with organised crime for smuggling or trafficking goods. So if you then want a bit more information, you then click into the windows and it's going to give you the supporting documentation to go with that. And again, I'd imagine if a gang of 5 men try to hide £10 million of cigarettes through a smuggling ring, it's probably something that you'd want to know about. All of the supporting documentation is available for you to download. Now, once you have reviewed that particular alert, and again, you get all of the linked persons. So if it's more than just the one individual or one company that's been listed, we'll also tell you about the other individuals that may have been linked into this particular offence. You can then go and export to PDF if you want a copy of it. I'm going to go back into the original result. And this is when you can say, right, OK, I can select this and say, right, I've reviewed this and I can match and say, OK, it is a match. So it is the business or individual that I'm working with. I've confirmed that it is the people we're working with, but it poses no risk to the relationship that we have with them. You can then say, yes, I've reviewed it and it is the individual or company that we're working with, and we are saying that this is a real risk and so it needs action in internally. You can mark as a risk. Or if it comes through and you say, OK, it just so happens that there's an individual with the same address or location, name and year of birth, but it's not actually the person we're looking for, you can then go ahead and discount it as a non-match. And then add any comments in. These comments are only available for you to view within your own organisations. So that, you know, don't worry about the data being shared. It is only for your internal records that you might want to add some comments in. So I can just put test in there, add a comment, and that's just going to discard that alert as a no match. If you go in and you start reviewing an alert but you're not too sure whether it's going to impact the relationship. Once you click into an alert and start viewing it, it then automatically moves it from open to pending. That basically means that it's been looked at by somebody within the organisation, however, you haven't marked it as risk or no risk yet. And you will be able to differentiate between them on the work list, because you do then have your pending actions. So anything that sits within this pending action folder right at the bottom is something where you've gone in, you've reviewed it, but you have not yet made a decision as to whether it's a risk or not to the organisation. Any questions? I'm well aware that I've spoken at all of you for a good 40 minutes now around compliance and credit reporting, which is very, very dry subject. But if you're anything like me, I hope that you do find it interesting. It should come with a bit of a warning that it can be a bit of a rabbit warren, and once you start, you just can't stop.
Yeah, there's just one question coming, Ella, and it was relating to the GDPR element. So obviously, when you were showing us, there was a person of interest and there was personal data and passport numbers, all that kind of thing on there. It was just a case of how does that fit in with GDPR? I presumed it was because it was in the public domain, but I don't know.
Yeah, so not all of this data is publicly available, which is why it's all timestamped with user IDs. So we know exactly who it is that's accessing the data because you are clients of Creditsafe and we have all of your organisation information. So from a GDPR standpoint, you're absolutely fine. Once you download a report with personal information, it is then up to you guys internally. If you are sending that information outside of the organisation, it is you as a business that would be liable. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. I suppose it was. Yeah, I think that's probably fine.
Fabulous. If you do want any sort of a more in-depth conversation about data protection, and then please, whoever it was that asked that question, please do feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to provide you with all of the lengthy afternoon or evening reading that you can have around GDPR and Creditsafe. But essentially, we are probably sat within one of the most highly regulated industries and one of the most highly regulated countries possible. So yeah, it's essentially within the platform, you're absolutely fine. If you then download this data and shared it outside of the organisation, it would then be up to you and your own internal GDPR policies as to whether that is okay or not.
Sure. I suppose it'd be similar as if you worked in an NHS trust, for instance, and you accessed it for professional reasons, as opposed to then if you then share it outside of a professional environment, it's that's not what it's meant for, I guess. So that's that sounds similar. Yeah, I've got was there another question in here?
I've just seen one pop through.
Yeah, can there be a case where the PSC shows links to other companies but the group structure shows no other companies?
Yes. So if there's potentially one individual who is linked to another company, however, nobody else, no other shareholders or directors are linked to another company, then there'd be a link on the director or PSC, but there would not be a link for the company itself.
Okay.
Because the links aren't strong enough there.
Sure. And there was just a question: was the compliance reports, are they included in the current contract subscription?
They are. So everything that I've shown you today falls within the realms of what you already have access to. So none of this is going to cost you anything else. It's all part and parcel.
Lovely, no worries. And there was the inevitable question around the bank verification that we thought might come through as well, but I did respond to that and just said that that's a conversation that's very much ongoing, and we hope to have a bit of news on that in the very near future. So we are discussing it. Is the headline.
Yes, hopefully we'll have some very good news for all of you soon. I will. Shall I quickly just show a commercial bank verification check just for those that have not seen it at this point?
Yeah, I don't suppose it would hurt. It's just if it's showing that additional functionality there, so people are aware of what it is that we might potentially include going forward. I think it'd be a good idea.
Of course. So this needs a big coming soon logo to appear across your screens. A lot of you guys have now actually trialed commercial bank verification. Some of you have also looked at consumer bank verification as well for sole traders. So when you are going to the lengths that you are to vet these businesses and to make sure that they are financially stable, to make sure that the individuals behind these companies align with your internal business values and ethics, what then happens if you award them the contract, however you start paying money into a company account that you haven't actually vetted, or an individual's account that you haven't actually vetted, and that's where bank verification comes in. So at the moment, I'd imagine a lot of the processes that are followed are or go along the lines of we send out a request that they provide bank details on letterheaded paper signed by a director. It comes into our department, whether that's procurement or accounts. We then pick up the phone to verify those bank details. That's usually the process that's followed. This will hopefully speed that up. So commercial bank verification, you go into the section of the website, you type in the business name and you hit search. You then select the company that you're looking for, and it'll give you a bit of a breakdown so you can make sure that it is the right business. You then input the sort code and account number. You don't need the IBAN number or VAT number. They're just extra little options available. Sort code and account number are the only fields that we need. Once you've inputted those, you hit verify and you will get a validation and a verification result. The validation result is saying, okay, this is a real bank account. We have matched the account number and sort code. This bank account does exist. The verification side is saying, okay, this bank account exists, but this bank account also belongs to this company. So you can see here that we're matching the sort code and account number to the business in question, not the sister company, not a holding company, but this company specifically. So you can be sure that once you've gone to all of the effort of verifying that you're happy to actually engage with this particular business, that the payments that you're making are actually into said business and not a sister company, a parent company, or someone completely outside of that organisation. So again, big coming soon logos across the screen, hopefully. But if you'd like any more information, just let me know. But hopefully Matt and I'll have some updates. And I can see that a question came in from Alexander. Yes, that is available for individuals as well. So it's both commercial and consumer bank verification. With consumer bank verification, the only difference is we do require a date of birth and address. Obviously, as you can imagine, the number of Ella Nelsons that there are in the UK is pretty hefty. So we just need a little bit more information, but we still can verify consumer bank details.
Sure. And yeah, as you said before, Ella, as well, in terms of that availability, anything that anybody has any questions for me also, from a UK UPC point of view, in terms of the contract lead, if you want to send anything through myself to Ella, she and I speak on a fairly regular basis. I'm sure she's sick of me by now, but yeah. We can still get this information through. And did we want to mention, Ella, the fact that you are on your travels in the next few weeks?
I am. I feel like I'm doing a trip of the UK for all any UPC members at this point. So I am. I'm going to be sort of visiting quite a lot of organisations to talk more in depth about compliance processes, automating processes, tightening up processes when it comes to compliance and supplier vetting. So if anybody, whether you are down south, in the Midlands, up north, wants me to come out, see you in person, sort of sit down and talk to you about sort of best practice across this sector, but also others, you know, what are our clients that are commercial banks doing, what are our law firms doing, and how can we hopefully start implementing this across your sector as well, then drop me a line and I'd be more than happy to come and see you.
Lovely. And I suppose it's worth mentioning that as those are doing, it's as things develop in terms of usage and what have you, but I think for colleagues who are members of the consortia, so LUPC, SUPC, HEPCU, and the Northwest. If you're in, I think Ella, you were saying that you might like to visit them at their headquarters as well, just to meet the teams and whatnot as well. So if that is the case, just give me a just give me a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. And say, I know that a question popped in about bank verification again. I knew as the second I started talking about it, there'd be a few questions. So obviously we had lots of guinea pigs that trialed commercial bank verification. The idea was that it'd be a paid additional extra for any institution that decided to move forward with it. However, because of how popular it was, it has opened up much broader conversations with our contracting partners. So hopefully it'll be something that might be coming as part and parcel of the package very soon. And I think there was another question around the difference around consumer bank match, of course. So again, consumer bank matching predominantly used for sole traders. So individuals that you're working with, I've spoken to a lot of organisations who have said, really, we don't want to be dealing with sole traders. However, for some reason, we still got loads of them, which is absolutely fine. However, again, when you are vetting those individuals and you may be running anti-money laundering checks on them, I don't know the sort of wealth of checks that you're carrying out on these individuals before engaging with them. But it's just making sure that when you are going ahead and making the payment, that you are paying the individual that you thought you are, and not their partner, not their parents, not their friend. It's making sure that the money is going to the place that you think it's going, and not into the pockets of a complete stranger.
Yeah, it makes sense. You hear about various things as well where, as you say, things can be kind of either siphoned or indeed deliberately redirected elsewhere for a number of illicit purposes. So yeah, we don't want to get into that. I would imagine anyway.
Exactly, and I mean, there's been lots of you guys that have sort of asked about monies coming into the university. You know, I know that lots of universities are trying to go down the route of like corporate funding potentially for research projects, or high net worth individuals that are making significant donations into universities. And it's okay if it's coming in from an individual, again, that you're running anti-money laundering checks on. You know, if you're going to run an anti-money laundering check on myself because I'm about to make a big donation into the university, are you making sure that it is my money that's ultimately sent to you and it's from my bank account? If not, it may be another individual that's trying to launder money through the university for potential research purposes or goodness knows what. But it's just being a little bit more aware of the changing world that we're in. And I think at this point, there's no limits to the things that people will do to try and make lives difficult in tracking those people down. So yeah.
Lovely. I'm just responding to Paula had a question came through about an error message that had come up around permissions, but that'll be something that we can probably look at afterwards just to see how that particular one's set up and whatnot.
Yeah, so if there's any issues in accessing any of the compliance stuff, please do ping me an email, myself or Matt. It may be just that there's some T's and C's that haven't been signed or they're outdated on the account. Anything like that, let me know.
So, and if you send it through to the central mailbox at NEUPC, it's just creditsafe@neupc.ac.uk. So effectively anything to do with that, you're much better sending it in there, because we have several pairs of eyes on that inbox rather than it coming just to myself if I happen to be on leave for a day or two. That'd be nice. But yeah, it just means that it's everything to do with Creditsafe. It just gets streamlined through there, so we can follow up on that central point of contact. It just works a lot better that way.
Well, say thank you so much for joining. I think there was a lot more people than expected in the end. But like I said, I am on my travels, so anybody that wants sort of a more in-depth sit down and look at sort of compliance and processes that are being followed by other organisations within the sector or across other sectors, then let me know. I'm more than happy to come and see you. Any questions around the platform, as Matt mentioned, there is a central mailbox, so any issues, please do let us know. But apart from that, thank you very much.
Yeah, lovely. And I think we'll probably do some more of these in the future as well. We try and do these every sort of 3 to 4 months or something like that. And yeah, there's some focus around it's just keeping it refreshed and whatever topics are getting raised at that particular moment in time. I think it's, it's a moving feast. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And if there's nothing any more for right now, we'll let you go, Ella, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again very shortly.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, guys. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.